Nebraska Extension here, and today I'm planting. We're actually just finishing up planting an entire field, but you can see behind me I've got 2-row unit moving through the field, trying to finish up what was a long day of planting. This whole field, there's a bird in front of me right now, red-tipped blackbird. And I just had to come back with the bulk bins on the planter and do these last few rows to finish it up and get out of here. I've got auto steer running, so it's the end of rows approaching. It's steering itself though. I'm just along for the ride, and the planter is putting the seed in the ground. Welcome to the live stream, everyone who's watching. I'm just finishing up planting. Curious how's the quality. If anyone can see this live, shoot me a comment. Now I've got to turn around, so I'm at the end of the row. I'll come up and I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to turn off the auto steer. I'm going to pick up the planter, and now I'm just going to turn around. So this is a field here that was in corn, hasn't been planted yet, so I can turn around easily in it. And then once I get kind of lined back up, I'll come over here and I'll press this yellow steering wheel button. So now it's going to start steering itself. I'm pretty well lined up, so it doesn't need to adjust much. I'll just get lined up to this edge. You can see where the field changed from last year. And I'll drop the planter boxes in the ground. I'll set the height where I want it, right about there. Might tilt it back just a little bit, but it's looking good. And then I'll start to roll. Oh, I was too slow. Okay, we're steering. You can see that wheel in the middle is turning the whole system. So that's driving the chains that are driving the bars and driving the chains on the boxes that are releasing seeds. So as I drive, seeds are falling into the ground, and they're falling at a rate of about 8 seeds per foot of row, or about 140,000 seeds per acre. So we're just cruising along, planting soybeans in Nebraska. This time of year, it's a little bit early for beans. We had a frost last night in this area, but I think these are going to do just fine because it'll take them maybe a week or a little longer to really get up and where they're in risk of frost. But just moving along, the planter is sort of driving itself right now. I'm just here to run the computer and make sure everything goes where it's supposed to be. But you can see the end of the row is approaching. That's what that alarm is. And once we get towards the end, I'm going to stop and I'll lift up the planter and turn it around. But you can see the other rows that we've already planted over here, and you can see that whole field. This is actually a small plot research site, so we do a lot of our experimentation here with different ways of farming, trying to find better ways to do stuff. I specifically work on diseases of soybeans, so I'm trying to find ways to prevent the soybeans from dying, because did y'all know that plants get sick too? Plants get viruses, plants get fungal infections, plants have bacteria on them that also kill them. And one interesting thing about plants and their immune system is they don't have an adaptive immune system. So whereas a human, when a human gets sick, we get a disease, we start to feel unwell, our immune system will start to spin up and it'll learn what's attacking us, and then it'll start to respond to that. It'll make antibodies. Those will kill the problem, they'll kill the pathogen. Plants can't do that. So when a plant gets sick, it's just got to muscle through, and it might ultimately die from them, but there's very limited ability for a plant to actually stop being sick. Now it could recover if you took it into a different environment where it wasn't conducive for disease. Say the disease requires really wet weather, and then you put it in a really hot area, that would stop the disease. Problem is, you can't really move plants once they're planted unless it's in a pot. But if you did have, say, a plant in your house in a humid room, you could take it and put it out on the sun porch where it got more sun, and that might stop the infection or slow it down. until the plant could just outgrow it. But the plants we're growing in this field, this is soybeans here, we're going to grow them for 1 year. They're only going to survive for a single year, and then they're going to die, and they're going to grow a bunch of seeds because that's their life cycle. They're not meant to be perennial. So when these get sick, the real problem that growers care about is the fact that they're going to grow fewer seeds and make less yield. So it's really important that we maintain their health as much as possible so they can make as many leaves as possible, so they can grow as many soybeans as possible. And we want to do that in the most sustainable, economical way. So we don't want to just be spraying a fungicide on everything if it's not necessary. We don't want to be planting them with seed treatments if it's not necessary. There's a lot of different things we can do. So at times, fungicides and seed treatments are necessary. They're just necessary because we have a lot of fungi living in the soil. We have a lot of fungi and bacteria in the air blowing around all the time. We had a huge southern rust epidemic across Nebraska last year where we lost millions, tens of millions of dollars of corn that just didn't grow because the leaves were covered in a fungus. There's really not a lot we can do about that other than apply a fungicide to protect them. And not all fungicides are actually going to be a fungicidal compound. Some are just protectants, something that's going to be on that leaf that's going to protect it and make it a barrier so the fungus can't infect. So there's a lot that we can do. We just need to focus very carefully on what are the most sustainable things we can do and what are the most economical things we can do, because at the end of the day, in Nebraska and across the Midwest, these farmers that farm these hills, they're small businesses, family businesses that need to stay in business. That's the ultimate goal, is just to keep farming another generation and feeding this country. So they're going to do what it takes, but they always need to be thinking about that bottom line, thinking about what's going to, put the most food on their own family's table. So what I'm doing today, I'm actually planting soybeans. I'm down to basically the last row here. I planted this whole field today, and I'm using a very small planter. It's just 2 rows. So that's not normal, right? Growers usually have, 16 rows or even 48 rows. But what I'm doing here is research. So these are all experiments with different type of farming, and I'm just coming in to backfill these and fill up this edge basically. So I'll show you guys how I do that. Hello everyone in the chat, thanks for saying hi. What I've got is a Kubota tractor, and I've got a GPS auto steer system on it, so you can't see, but here's my field set up with all the rows. What I'm going to do, I'll pull ahead until I get lined up with where I want to plant, and that flag is basically where I want to start planting. So I'll get right here. I'm going to press this lever here down, and that's going to lower this planter down to the ground. So you can see it lowering. Now it's on the ground where we want it to be. And I'm going to pull forward, but before I do it, I'm going to come here and I'm going to turn on the auto steer system. So now the planter is going to drive itself. The wheel should adjust itself here in a minute. Yep. And now it's going to do that as I go. The drive wheel on the planter, the one in the middle, is going to turn that whole system and power it. So it doesn't have any electricity. It just powers itself from the ground as the tractor pulls it. And it's planting those seeds. That wheel's spinning chains and spinning that, and it's dropping seeds down in a furrow that knives are cutting. And then the back wheels on the back of the planter are closing up those rows. The tractor is still steering itself. That's how we get these really straight rows. It's a lot of work to keep a planter straight without auto steer, so this will keep it going. I'm going to throttle up here a little bit. I like to plant with these about 4 miles an hour. And you can see we're just going right down the old rows from last year. Normally we would rotate these from soybean into corn, but this is an area with a specific type of soil and conditions that we want to research. So we keep this in soybeans for a few years before we take it out. So I'm coming up on some of the last rows, end of rows approaching. And in a couple weeks, we'll be out here looking at beans as they grow. So thanks everyone watching in the chat. What crops do you guys grow where you're from? We grow primarily corn, soybean. We have some sugar beets here in Nebraska, a little bit of potato, sunflower a little bit, alfalfa, all kinds of interesting crops that we grow here, but it's just different than a lot of the rest of the world. So this used to be corn, that's why it's so stubbly. The beans don't really have a lot of residue. So I'm going to come here on the edge and I'm going to put another row in. But it's only one of these two is really going to grow. We'll see though. So I'm going to kick on the auto steer here so it'll steer itself. I'll drop the planter down in the ground and then let's finish this out. Thanks everyone in the chat for coming on and watching as we plant these final rows. This is the end of our planting season for this farm. Everything's done here. It's a windy day, but it's been beautiful here in the cab. All right, thanks everyone. Where's everyone in the chat from, and what crops do you guys grow there? Hi everyone, thanks for saying hi. Now I'm coming up on the end of the row. This is it, the end of the row for this farm, for our program here. So when I get to the end, I'm going to pull up the planter, I'm going to turn it off, and we're going to drive back. That's the end of the planter row. I'll pick up the planter and we're done. I'll turn off the auto steer so it quits steering itself. Now we're gonna have to drive this old-fashioned style like Grandpappy did it. And we'll turn down this little access lane, but you can just see all the rows we've planted. Let me go back and count something real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. I did 10 rows with this planter, so I'm going to write it down. Here's our maps. This is what we use to keep track of research. These are research plots here, how we lay them out, what we do. I'm just going to mark here that I did 10 rows of P30 Alpha 75. So I switched planters to this little one. We had a bigger one out here a little bit ago. I switched to this little one just to clean up the end rows and get a good end on this thing. So I'm gonna drive this back to the barn. Actually, we're gonna go load it on a trailer because we're gonna go and try and plant another research site today. That's about 2 hours away from here, so we'll get down there, and that's a really small one, but we'll go down there and get that planted in the field. All right, since I'm wrapping up, actually, I'll keep this chat running and I'll show you guys how auto steer works driving back on the farm road, so you can see the wonders of GPS technology and how lazy that I can be when I have the option to let the tractor drive itself. So I'll take the planter, I'm going to tilt it up just a little bit. I tilted it up just so it makes sure it doesn't drag the ground at all. Is everyone in the chat ready for auto steer to drive itself? Did everyone know that farmers have had auto steer for years? Way before self-driving cars. Tractors have been driving themselves. So I'm going to get up this little hill carefully. All right, I'm on the road. I just turned on auto steer. Now we're cruising along. Can I get a thumbs up in the chat for auto steer? All right, well, I'll end the live stream here. Thanks everyone for watching. Come back and subscribe and come back this season if you want to see how these beans grow. I'll follow along and just maybe show you what happens in a soybean production field and how we do some of the research that we do. So thanks everyone for watching. I really appreciate you out there, and we'll be back soon. Bye.